Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'm making another video in my series Tarot Reflections, and I want to talk about the major arcana card of the Hermit. So here is the Hermit card in the Marseille Tarot. It's quite a beautiful image from this particular deck, and I really love the deep royal blue colour of the cloak of the Hermit. I think it's a particularly good image from this deck. So I quite like this particular Hermit image from this deck. And this series is based on the book Meditations on the Tarot by Valentin Tomberg. And I'll put the details below the video for the particular deck as well as the book. So I just wanted to talk about a number of things that resonated with me from the chapter about the Hermit in the book. So one of the first things in the book that the author mentions is the quote by Eliphas Levi, who refers to the Hermit as the initiate, which I quite like and agree with. And then the author goes on to talk about a number of things, but I like this particular point about the Hermit being a solitary figure who creates light, and that's with the lamp that he's carrying. Just here. So it's like a gold lamp, a gold casing of the lamp with a red light. So that lamp in that card looks slightly different to other Marseille images. And there's also the point made that the Hermit represents light united with thought. And the next particular point that I really like is the author saying that the Hermit is about the endeavour to draw light from darkness. So that really resonates with me. The endeavour to draw light from darkness. And I think that is something that at particular stages in our lives, that is a difficult thing to do, but it is an important thing to do. In some ways it can be essential for our well-being. And then the author mentions the traditional meaning of prudence. So prudence is a very traditional meaning associated with the Hermit card. And then the author talks about conscious self-direction. So that's another one that can be difficult to be aware of as you live your life. As you travel along the way of your life like the Hermit, conscious self-direction. So self-direction is one thing that you may have and you may think about, But whether that self-direction is conscious or not, I think that's another thing. And the author then talks about the hermit representing solutions to problems. And that is one as well that very often in our lives where we are travelling our way through life, making our way through life, and there are times where we are looking for solutions to problems. And then the other point that the author mentions that I particularly like is that the hermit represents a deep level of consciousness. And that is found in darkness. So that one resonates with me as well, because I think at times when we encounter darkness, and this can be within ourselves as well, and I think sometimes we do have to encounter that darkness to experience that deep level of consciousness. Then the author mentions that solitude is the method of the hermit. And I think that is an expected thing, really, because the very word hermit does represent solitude, or is the embodiment of solitude. The hermit is really the embodiment of solitude. Then the author says the hermit makes the way from each experience of thought and the hermit making the way from each experience of thought. I think that's another really relevant point, because very often when you're at different stages in life, to continue to make the way and to continue to travel on, to keep going, that can be difficult as well. Then the author mentions that the hermit represents spiritual endeavour, which I think is the way itself, spiritual endeavour, and responsibility. And I do think that when you're on the path of spiritual endeavour, responsibility should go along with that. Then the author mentions something that's, I think, quite a bit unusual. I haven't heard this before, but the author mentions that the hermit walking is really important. I mean, I've often thought that about the hermit as well. I mean, the hermit is outside and the hermit is travelling. That's why there is a staff, the red staff, that he's holding on to as he travels along. He's walking. He's not inside somewhere. He's walking. He's walking outside. So I think that's an important point for the author to make as well. The fact that the hermit is walking, and the author refers to the walking as a state beyond contemplation and action. So some people think that contemplation is the opposite of action. And in a lot of ways it is. But the author refers to the hermit walking as a third state of being. It's another state again. So the author refers to the walking as a state beyond contemplation and action. And he sort of mentions that because the author is kind of hinting that the walking is a kind of a balancing state. It's a way of balancing. Not so much physically balancing, but another type of kind of balancing state. Then he talks about the hermit having the faculty of illuminating and healing. Now the illumination you can quite easily see with the lamp part of the image. The healing is something that I would associate with the hermit, but not everyone does. But I think very often the darkness needs to be illuminated first before healing can occur. And then the author talks about the more obvious one, that the hermit makes the way through the spiritual world. Now, I kind of see the earthly world and the spiritual world to not necessarily be two different things. For me, they're really one and the same. But the author makes a point of saying the spiritual world. So that's really interesting too, if you think of the hermit making the way through the spiritual world. And in that way, the hermit is actually like leading the way and leading ahead. So I like that. And one of the final things in the chapter that the hermit mentions is that the hermit represents the Christian hermeticist. And this whole book is about the journey of Christian hermeticism. So the author says that the hermit actually represents the Christian hermeticist. So I really like that. So all in all, this chapter on the hermit, I found it quite enlightening. There's a lot of, pardon the pun with the lamp, but there are a lot of points in this chapter, but quite a lot of the points did resonate with me, particularly the points that I've mentioned in the video, because these are the ones that I make note of. And I really like this image as well of this deck. So I hope you liked hearing some of the points from the chapter in the book that particularly resonated with me about the hermit. So I'll put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.